Hello everyone, today I'll be releasing version 1.1 of my helicopter mobility chip. This solves a couple of issues that version 1.0 had. I developed everything in single player, so I wasn't aware that in multiplayer it would be broken due to the iPods being very buggy. So now I don't rely on the iPod anymore, so it should work just fine in multiplayer. I have tested it and it seems to work just fine. Another issue I solved was the fact that if you had a lower frame rate, you would not be able to control the helicopter very well. It's some weird interaction the between your eye angles where they would only update every other frame or so that the helicopter wouldn't turn as quickly. Either way, I have fixed that, and what you need to do is change this value here, which is right now set to 60, to your average FPS. So say you have about 30 FPS on average, but sometimes it dips below 20. You want to put maybe a 20 here. So you want to make sure this is around your minimum FPS so that you can always control the helicopter optimally. So right now I'm running at 100 FPS, so I don't have to worry about this. So you can just set this to the max, which would be 60, which would leave you with no carry ticks. So that's pretty much it. Basically, if you have very good performance, keep the 660. Don't worry about this. But if your performance lowers, you want to set this a bit lower. So maybe 15 frames per second, 20 frames per second. And of course, depends on your case. If you have very good performance, you can also put this a little bit lower than your average FPS. It shouldn't have any problems at all, as long as you don't put the value way too low, in which case the helicopter is going to feel a bit weird to fly. Another thing I did was add a sensitivity. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's going to help you turn faster or slower depending on the way you change the sensitivity. So another thing that changed is that wiring is quite a bit simpler now. So I haven't wired anything here yet. Nothing is wired. You still need the iPod and the wire camera, but these don't need to be wired to anything anymore. So just leave these as is. Just connect them to the chair, of course. And all you have to do is wire everything on the chip. The chip is going to do everything for you, essentially. You don't have to worry about a thing. It controls everything through the wire links. So, main rotor and tail rotor. Helicopter is, of course, built the same way, with parenting everything to the main plate. So now just update this really quick after wiring everything, so that, this is parented and the wire links do the correct things. And there we go. It should work just fine. Everything else is essentially the same. The controls are exactly the same. And both those issues should be fixed just fine. Alright, there we go. So, if you have any questions, you know how to contact me. And the code is, of course, going to be down in the description. I urge you to use this instead of version 1.0. Unless you play in single player and you have good performance, in which case 1.0 would be just fine for you. But if your performance dips below 60 FPS, or if you, of course, play in multiplayer, which I usually do not, you definitely want to be using version 1.1. Well, that's all for now, and happy building.